Chapter 10 Other Training Issues You Need to Know About. Every dog is an individual. Behavior is complex, and there is no easy answers when it comes to explaining problems related to learning. We've looked at operant, medical, and environmental variables related to behavior, but there is even more information to consider before we can fully understand how dogs learn. Breed differences, the individual characteristics of each dog and variables, and the way they are trained all play important parts in successfully teaching new behaviors or changing the existing behaviors of any dog. Breeds, no kidding, they really are different. Start making generalizations about any breed of dogs, and within milliseconds, you will have seriously offended some dog owners. If you say sporting dogs are active, someone will surely tell you that their Weimaraner is mellow, calm, and quiet, and never leaves the couch. If you make the point that Labrador Retrievers are known for the ability to learn quickly, at least one owner will emphatically insist that his two labs are absolutely untrainable. If you talk about the general tendency of terriers to be tenacious, someone will undoubtedly describe her Scottie as a cream puff. We understand this because we've owned two dogs that were not typical representatives of their breeds. One was a Doberman Pinscher, typically known as a good guard breed, that never barked at anything. If someone broke into the house in the middle of the night, we were certain he would have served coffee in a Danish. The other was a sociable, people-loving border collie that never read the book that said he was supposed to be task-oriented and aloof. We told people he was a golden retriever in a border collie suit. While there are exceptions to every rule, the truth of the matter is that different breeds have developed as a result of hundreds of years of selective breeding for certain characteristics, including temperament. Maintaining and preserving common characteristics within a breed is the whole point of purebred breeding. Dogs. Working breeds were selectively bred to be strong and active. Hounds were bred to use their senses of sight and smell, and herding breeds were bred with the stamina to work livestock for hours at a time. In Genetics and the Social Behavior of the Dog, John Paul Scott and John L. Fuller described the results of their classic comprehensive research on dog behavior. Working with Passengees, Beagles, Cocker Spaniels, Shetland Sheepdogs, and Fox Terriers, Scott and Fuller showed the heredity affects a number of traits, and the certain breeds of dogs can perform better at some tasks. Certainly, there are exceptions within each breed, and dogs that, because of individual genetics or learning histories, do not fit the mold. Yet, for the most part, it is important that the dog owners and trainers understand the histories of breeds and specific breed characteristics if they want to fully understand the animal they are working with. A man who bought two adult dachshunds, a breed he had not previously owned, was distressed that this dog had serious behavior problems. Aggression? No, the problem was digging. And what do we mean digging? Left in the backyard when the owner went to work, the dog soon turned a professionally landscaped yard in an upscale neighborhood into something that resembled a minefield in a war zone. When we explained that these happy little dogs had a proud heritage of hunting badgers in their holes and tunneling through dirt to flush small animals from their dens, the man found the problem a little more understandable. He eventually planted toys and bones in a designated doxy digging pit and began keeping the dog inside when he went to work. In general, dogs of the same breed share many of the same characteristics when it comes to looks, temperament, and behavior. Bloodhounds and basset hounds often put their noses to the ground and smell as they walk along. These breeds were developed to trail game by following its scent. Understanding that these breeds are scent-oriented can give owners and trainers an appropriate perspective when a dog is taking time to smell the roses instead of heeling nicely. No, the dog isn't being stubborn. It's just doing what comes naturally. One of the goals in training should then be to find a way to make other reinforcers more interesting. It's all relative. Because there are individual differences within breeds and one dog may not behave exactly as the breed was intended to, you can benefit from interacting with knowledgeable breeders before acquiring a particular breed or when a training problem arises. Experienced breeders can tell you what is normal for the breed and what the range of variations might be. It is also important to remember that when general statements are made about a breed, they usually come with an unspoken disclaimer that all generalizations are, comparatively speaking. Someone once wrote that pointers don't shed much. A pointer owner who had been horrified and embarrassed in many a business meeting when he noticed vice presidents staring at all the short white hairs on his dark suit disagreed. For him, pointers do shed a lot. It's all relative. A word about mixed breeds. Mixed breed dogs are a mixture of more than one breed. Sometimes knowing the breed that contributed to the dog's ancestry will provide some very valuable information about the best way to train the dog, but you do not always have the luxury of knowing the background of mixed breed dogs. Sometimes so many breeds have been intermixed for so many generations that it would be impossible to tell. When the background is unknown, some behavioral principles are all we have left to train the dog. Trainability. A Dandy Dinmont is not a Mastiff. In general, some breeds learn faster by traditional training methods than others. The important thing to remember is that dogs of every breed have been trained to the advanced levels of obedience by skilled trainers. Some breeds are more challenging to train, and they are seen in formal competition less often, but having a breed that is not often seen in the obedience ring should never be an excuse for lack of training. When operant conditioning procedures are applied correctly, all dogs can learn. At a very large dog show, we observed a wide variety of breeds as they went through the Canine Good Citizen Test, a test of basic training and good manners that was developed by the American Kennel Club. During testing, owners are not permitted to force dogs into positions, but they may give minimal physical prompts to cue their dog. For example, if a dog does not sit with the first verbal command, the owner can gently give some physical guidance. Many owners at the show entered their dogs in the test, even though the dog had received no formal training. Some of the dogs had never been taught to sit on command, yet in many cases, with many breeds, if owners gave some gentle guidance, the dog would sit anyway. It was interesting to see that some breeds resisted being guided into position. In particular, all of the Chinese Shar-Pei would spring back into a standing position when their owners tried to guide them to sit. Later, we heard from several trainers who were skilled at using clickers at secondary reinforcers that they had little success using clickers with the Shar-Pei. Does this mean that they are untrainable? Of course not. What it means is that trainers need to find out what makes this breed, an individual dog within the breed, tick. A Shar-Pei that we know would sit for long periods of time and watch television. The same dog would sit in front of a full-length mirror and turn her head from side to side as if she were checking her lipstick. This dog was visually oriented. She was static and not impressed with our offers of the standard reinforcers. A knowledge of specific breeds can give you an edge when it comes to selecting reinforcers and training methods that best suit a particular dog. Individual exceptions, there's one in every bunch. In addition to understanding specific aspects of particular breeds, good trainers are in tune with the unique characteristics of the individual dogs they are working with. Just as people have individual learning styles and preferences based on their biology and learning histories, the idea of different strokes for different folks also applies to dogs. Even after majority medical issues have been ruled out, some dogs have complications related to physiology that can influence learning. For example, hyperactivity can be present in dogs as well as children, although this diagnosis should be made carefully by a veterinarian and not misapplied to a dog that is simply very active. Some dogs are not reinforced by the same thing that other dogs respond to. To them, it's treats and food. Who cares? Other dogs couldn't care less about praise, and the many good boys squealed by owners throughout a training session may go in one ear and out the other. In addition, some individuals within a breed may be less responsive to verbal instructions than others, and some dogs are much more visually oriented than you might realize. Individual dogs within a litter can have temperament problems, and dogs from the same breeding lines can have particular characteristics such as aggression towards people or animals. What makes a good dog trainer? Considering everything competent, dog trainers must know training a dog sounds like a complicated process. Two of the most critical steps in the training process are developing an understanding of the individual dog and taking a careful look at the behaviors that are present. These two steps will provide a starting point for successful training. If there were a mathematical formula for dog training, the dog would make up one half of the equation and the trainer would undoubtedly account for the other half. The behavior and skills of the person working with a dog will have a significant impact on the dog's ability to learn. Being able to analyze your own behavior as a trainer is an important part of understanding how dogs learn. A few years ago, in a seminar for professionals who worked with autistic children, a leading therapist was asked what she looked for when she interviewed staff for her clinic. As most of the seminar audience grabbed their pens and prepared to record a long list of behavioral skills, This very behaviorally oriented expert gave a response that was dramatically simple: the ability to be kind and to preserve. She went on to say that she could teach anyone the other technical skills required to be a good teacher. These thoughts could just as easily be applied to dog training. Some trainers have good intentions, but they have a difficult time developing a kindness towards the dogs they are teaching because of some common misconception about how dogs think and learn. One trainer who was being downright mean and verbally abusive to her toy dog had been shamefully misled by her instructor. He filled her head with the notion that dogs deliberately misbehave in training in order to get back at the trainer. "That dog's too smart," he'd tell her. "She is deliberately trying to pull your chain." Other trainers use different terms to express the same idea. "That dog enjoys pushing you around," they might say. "Nothing could be further from the truth." Deception and manipulation are simply not part of the dog's repertoire of behaviors. Dogs are incapable of those feelings. Another trainer was trying to teach this dog to do the drop on recall. This is an obedience exercise in which the handler calls the dog. As the dog is coming, it is signaled to drop into a down position with a voice or hand signal. Then, at the judge's instruction, the dog is called to come and sit in front of the handler. A common mistake dogs make in this exercise is to anticipate the second recall. After dropping, they get up unprompted and return to the owner, thereby earning a disqualifying score. The trainer we observed was using water balloons to correct a golden retriever that had been anticipating the recall. At one point, the dog was in the down position, doing everything exactly right. From nowhere, the trainer hurled a water balloon at the dog and hit him. "Why did you do that? He was doing it right," we exclaimed. The trainer's response was, "I didn't want him to even think about doing it wrong." In other words, the dog was being punished for engaging in the correct behavior. Dogs are not so complex as to try to get back at their trainers. They would much rather be treated with fairness and consistent rules. You can create learning problems when you punish appropriate behaviors, as in the case of the water balloons, and when you give mixed signals. Dogs punished inconsistently often become so fearful that they are reluctant to engage in any behavior because they are expected a punisher. Some toy breeds will sit and quiver, lifting a submissive paw in the air as they appear to completely shut down. In the laboratory, there is a saying that the rat is always right. What this means is that the rat always responds according to the behavioral principles. In dog training, the dog is right, always right. If a dog appears to be goofing off and acting silly during training, it means training has not been established as a reinforcing activity. The item chosen as a reinforcer may not be the reinforcing to the dog, or you may not be delivering the reinforcer frequently enough. You may be sending confusing messages with inconsistent footwork or body language. If punishment is used, you may be inadvertently punishing appropriate behaviors. A trainer with a sound knowledge of breeds, a sensitivity and understanding of individual dogs, and competence in operant conditioning and the application of behavioral principles can build a bond with a dog that is wonderful, intense, and almost magical. For the rest of us, the trainer observation form provides a checklist of human behaviors that can be used to identify trainer-related problems. When you're using this form, you'll need someone skilled in dog training to observe you working with your dog. You may need to be observed more than once in order to identify any problem areas, and as with any training problem, a thorough veterinarian examination should be made to rule out any canine health problems.